My next guest is Ali Safavi. He's the president of Near East Policy Research, and he's written extensively on Iranian affairs. He joins me now in Washington. Mr. Safavi, thanks for joining us. You probably just heard our interview from Tehran. It sounds like it's very difficult to gauge how many people came out to the polls. So let me take it back a step if we can. How can this be called an election, even any kind of a democratic election, when the state decided who could run?
Well, first of all, it's very nice to be on your show, David. You're absolutely right. I think this was a travesty of the electoral process in Iran, and this is something that has been going on in that country for the past 25 years. And the fact is that the genuine democratic opposition in Iran has been denied the chance to run for elections throughout these years. And of course, this time, even people who were partners of this regime for the past quarter century were denied the opportunity to run. So I think, quite frankly, that this election, as you said, is totally illegitimate. It's not a really true election. And I think the regime will emerge out of it much more vulnerable in the face of growing popular opposition and much less legitimate to the eyes of the international community.
What is it the state fears here, do you think? And we're talking about the state. It's really run by a handful of clerics, from what I understand. But what is it they fear in terms of these elections?
Well, I think what happened in Iran in the past few weeks, I think, reflects the anxiety of a bunch of troglodyte clerics who feel that their days are numbered. And I think 25 years after Khomeini hijacked the popular revolution, I think there's no illusion whatsoever among the vast majority of the Iranians that no fundamental change will come about in Iran, and that it's about time for fundamental change. And that is why Iranians shun the elections. They shun both the so-called reformists and also, of course, the hardliners. And in fact, in the past few weeks, the prevailing message in Iran among the Iranians, among the youth, among women, has been the need for UN-supervised referendum on regime change. And ironically, many of the slogans that were being chanted in Iran over the past few years have been basically focusing on that. The demonstrations that were held in June of last year across Iran, in Tehran and elsewhere, they highlighted that point. And it's interesting that now this call for referendum on regime change is gaining international support. Hundreds of parliamentarians from dozens of countries around the world, including the United States Senate, have called for a referendum on regime change in Iran. And so in that context, really, I think the mullahs feel that the noose is tightening around their neck. And that is why they could not tolerate any kind of schism or divisiveness within the ruling establishment. They want to continue their grip on power. They want to continue their terrorism. They want to continue the nuclear program. They want to meddle in the internal affairs of Iraq. And to do all of this, obviously, they had to get every possible obstacle out of their way. And that's why they basically booted out their partners of the past 25 years out of these elections.
Mr. Safavi, you mentioned young people, and I think that is worth mentioning in this case, because it should be pointed out that about half of Iran's 65 million people are under 25. Is it to them you look towards for real change in this country?
Well, certainly, as you might imagine, when the Shah was overthrown 25 years ago, of course, young people played a very key part in bringing about that change. And I think today, basically the opposition to the regime comes from them. As you pointed out, the vast majority of the Iranian population is below the age of 25, and they have been very, very vehement in voicing their opposition. But I must add to that there's an organized opposition movement. The National Council of Resistance, which is a coalition that brings together various opposition groups, has been leading this campaign. In fact, the call for referendum in Iran was first made public by the Iranian opposition leader Maryam Rajavi, who ironically happens to be a woman in a country where the distinctive feature of the rulers is one of misogyny. So in that context, you're absolutely right. And I think that her message has found tremendous support among the Iranian youth, among women particularly. And quite frankly, I think now that everybody knows that elections in Iran are a sham, that it's, I think, it behooves the international community to really back this call up for a referendum, a UN-supervised referendum on regime change in the country.
All right, Ali Safavi, thank you very much for your insight today. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.